at PayPal, the thing that came up, by the way, this was central to this, was the Chinese and Russian mafia were stealing all our money. You know about this? So PayPal was losing like several $1 million a month back when that was a lot of money, and it was very unprofitable because you'd go use your card down the street at 7-Eleven, and the cashier there is not getting paid very well, and so they're like secretly like taking the numbers, and they sell 100 numbers online to the Russians for like $500, and then the Russians would take those numbers, run them through accounts, pretend you did transactions, and you get this thing later, it says PayPal $200, and you're like, I didn't do PayPal $200, so you say no to your credit card company, it's called a chargeback, PayPal has to eat it. And so this was happening at massive scale, and PayPal and its competitors were going under thanks to this, and so we had to figure out at PayPal, how do you go after it? We actually ended up taking a bunch of our customer service people, building these tools for them, building investigative tools, and then helping them figure out how to like stop and catch some of the bad guys and then turn them into Secret Service and FBI. So I ended up getting to know a bunch of these Secret Service FBI guys around 2000, 2001, 2002.
And I don't remember that at all. Wow. How long did it take you guys to solve that problem?
It was kind of a cat and mouse game because every time you'd figure out what the bad guys are doing, they'd change their method. So we tried to use AI, right? You try to teach the AI. AI wasn't nearly as good 20 years ago. And the AI could detect something, it was really machine learning, could detect some things, but you really needed the human intelligence layers. You'd have a machine learning layer, and you'd have these tools to let people see what was going on, and you'd keep just iterating and staying ahead of them. And the tools were good enough. We cut down the fraud by about 90%, and that made it profitable. And then PayPal was sold to eBay. And so the anti-fraud thing was a big piece of what made PayPal work. And we got to know these Secret Service guys, and these are good guys. A lot of them are good old boys. They're not tech guys. They're just like trying to figure out what the heck this internet thing is and how to deal with it and how to catch the bad guys. And so they'd come to us for advice, and I got to know quite a few of them. They'd come to me for advice on other stuff, and we started chatting with them. And because cybercrime was a new thing, and you're helping them out. And then 9/11 happened, and then we kind of saw the government spend billions of dollars trying to build new tools to help them do better, to stop future stuff. And the stuff they were building horrified us. It was stuff that was based on principles from maybe like 20 years ago. And we're like, wait a second, guys, like Silicon Valley exists. We've done all these new things with all the top talent. And it was just so disconnected. And we realized this is actually really scary because our country's spending actually tens of billions of dollars on this stuff that doesn't work, that's 20 years out of date. It's just completely not what a top software culture is. And that's when we realized, well, we got to figure out how to get involved and how to fix this.
And how did you get involved?
We started Palantir. With Stefan and I got about a bunch of my friends who were in PhD computer science programs one summer to come and sketch and draw it up with us, and they all thought we were totally crazy, so we couldn't convince them to join. A few of them joined a few years later.
What is Palantir?
So, at a very high level, Palantir is an effort to take like the very top technology culture in Silicon Valley and apply it to solve the most important problems, in these institutions that didn't have tech cultures in the intelligence and defense world. But what is it actually doing? So there was really initially 4 pillars of Palantir. It was data integration, search discovery, analysis, knowledge management, and collaboration. And each of those is like a really big hard product. So what happens if you have a government department? At the time, government was spending, say, $36 billion gathering data. So it's your job. There's like 5,000 databases. There's all sorts of SIGINTs and humans and other things coming in. There's all sorts of rules about how you access this database, what you're allowed to see, depending on the context. Like, what the hell do you do sitting in the middle of that? That's a weird, crazy problem. And you're a smart guy, but you're not a computer scientist. And so our job is to empower you. Our job is to hook up to all the databases, integrate it so it all could be seen together, let you ask simple questions like, okay, take this guy we found next to Osama bin Laden, show me any links to anyone else around him based on these contexts. Okay, now take those guys and monitor them. Do they show up in any databases? What do we know about them? And just be able to kind of iteratively explore and analyze while not breaking the rules on what you're allowed to see and bringing things in more easily. So it's a hard problem to solve.
This from a layman's term, it seems like it helps predict.
There's some prediction, but what you're really doing. So Palantir today is different than Palantir then. Palantir then was all about organizing this information to extend human intelligence into this massive amount of data. Because there's no way that any single human is going to be able to keep 5,000, 20,000 databases of stuff of different formats in their mind at a time. So you're going to have to organize it in a way you can interact with it, ask questions, preserve your investigations, share with others, collaborate. So that's the problem. Now it turns out that organizing all this information in all these ways is very powerful to then apply AI on top of it. And so as AI has gotten to be more advanced, there are now a lot more predictive, a lot more kind of like magical AI-like things that it could do thanks to that. So Palantir was lucky in a way to have a top technology culture and to be solving these kind of data organization, ontology, workflow problems, we call them, that when AI came along, it was really powerful to add AI to it and go even faster.
I mean, you guys were doing this with IED emplacement too.
100%. Like to be able to take all the data and figure that out. We first started working with a bunch of the special forces groups, and we really helped them and figure out some of those hard problems and partner with them. Some really smart guys that were taught us, like, well, here's the data you should be looking at. And we brought it together with that partnership and did it. And then the Army Brigade said, wow, we need this too, because they needed it badly. And they couldn't pay for it, of course, because they have some giant bureaucratic process. So we just gave it to them. We said, just show us the lives you're saving. That's all we want to see. So that's really inspiring to our engineers. And they started showing us the lives they were saving. And then it came up for bid. It's called the Defense Ground Control System, DCIGS, remember? His was it's called back then, I remember. And of course, some general gave it to his friend for like $5 billion at some other company. And everyone protested, like, we're using Palantir. We don't want to wait years for this giant contract. So we ended up suing the government. And I never sue anyone, but Palantir had to sue because they purposely just gave it to their friends, and we won. And it took years, but they eventually used us. You know what was shocking to me is when they finally eventually used Palantir, I'd met a bunch of the guys, and they all said, it's the best thing ever. It's amazing. We thought you guys were fake. We thought you guys were liars, because the people who were competing against us had just like talked shit about us for years.
Of course.
But we finally got in and made it work.
Man, that had to be pretty enraging, dude.
It's pretty frustrating when you're saving lives and you're doing it for free, and you're like have all these forward to play people just like working their asses off to like really help, and then they treat you like crap. Yeah, but because Palantir went through that, and because SpaceX went through something similar with their whole competition, we've paved the way now where a lot of the generals and admirals in Congress is more on the side of new innovation. Now they're more open to it. They're more willing to let it compete, which is important, because that's a much better place we're in now than we were 15 years ago.
Man, that's great to hear. I don't have much trust in anybody in government, but
there's some good ones every once in a while who really care, and you just got to partner with those.
Becoming one of the top serial entrepreneurs in the 2000s, I mean, what are some lessons learned, when it comes to building companies?
First of all, I come from this background in Silicon Valley with these tech cultures. Like, first of all, to build the really top companies, you need a really great technology culture. You need a place where the very best engineers, they're fighting to come in. So I think a typical company is like, you're like looking for engineers. Like, oh, well, I have this idea. I gotta find these people. I gotta find who's gonna help. And what you want is like the very most talented technologists in the world. It's there, and you want people lining up from the top places to try to come in. And that's a very hard thing to build, but that to me, that's number one if you want to build a multi-billion-dollar company. Like just absolutely A++ tech culture. Because what you could do with a really great tech culture is just you can try like 10 things or 100 things in the time that the other guys like still building their thing, and you impress people, you make it work, you iterate. Like with Palantir, we'd be back and forth every couple of weeks to DC. They'd have all these objections. We come back 2 weeks later. We would have done the equivalent of 6 months of work for a typical contractor in the 2 weeks. And we showed them, look, it's ready now. We did what you said, and we do that over 2 years. 50 times. Eventually you get somewhere really fast. So I'd say tech culture is number one. I'd say number two is you have to have a vision about like this is a gap in the world that you're really confident in, because building companies is really hard. Things go against you. Things take a long time. No one else actually believes in you and believes you're going to make it. So you got to be really sure there's this gap that you're going after, and really sure you're right. And just, it takes a certain overconfidence almost to be willing to go after that and do it. You'd be a little bit crazy, maybe.
I didn't ask this about your childhood, but I'm curious. Did you grow up in a fairly wealthy household?
Or I'd say more middle class.
Middle class?
My dad, I one of the most obnoxious stories I remember is when I was like 4.5 and we were flying on a plane economy. And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why aren't we in the front? And he said, well, this costs a lot more money and we're comfortable here. I said, Dad, but you're really smart. You're smarter than all those people. Why don't you have enough money to be in the front of the plane? Super obnoxious kid. My dad, it was really smart, and he just prioritized spending a hell of a lot more time with family. He was one of 8. I'm the oldest of 19 cousins, so he brought them all out to the Bay Area from Massachusetts, and he did a great work, but he never really, he grew up lower middle class. So for him, being middle class and having enough money was fine. He didn't care. which I admire, by the way. As a kid, I was obnoxious, but like there's a lot of lessons in that. It was really cool.
How did you? I mean, how did you get going? I mean, you're talking about lessons learned, and basically what you're saying is hire the best tech people there are. How were you able to find the capital to afford to bring that in?
That's a good question. At Palantir and also at Addepar and my other companies, we actually usually try to pay lower salary, higher equity. So you give them more upside in the company, so they had to believe in the company. And it was interesting whenever we gave someone an offer, we give them 3 choices for the offer. You could say you could take more cash, but they get a little bit less. Medium cash, medium, or take less cash and take more upside. And like the very best people, the ones who are the really best, they always wanted even less cash and even more upside.
No kidding.
Which is just because it's like they're just confident we're just gonna freaking win. And it was fun. I used to give them a table of here's what their shares would be worth if we had a certain level of success, and we'd give them the different types of options. And the biggest option was if we make this company worth $5 billion, here's what your shares are going to be worth. And everyone says, Joe, you can't say $5 billion. That's too high. That's ridiculous. So that was, it was kind of fun. It's 160 now, but that took 20 years.
Wow. What kind of percentage of ownership were you, or shares were you like?
I mean, so for an early, really strong engineer, they might get depending on where we are, like, you might get a really strong one early on, might get 1%, and then it gets diluted over time, right? So you goes down, but like later on, people get 0.5%, 1/4%. And dilution is when you raise more money, so you go in a little bit less than that. But let's say you started with 1/4%, you get diluted down to 0.1%. But 0.1% of a few billion is still a really big number, and 0.1% of 100 billion is a lot. So a lot of these guys did really well.
Wow. How long did it take you to start? Was there a turning point?
Oh yeah. You actually, 3 years into Palantir, we were building this software, iterating. A few of the top guys for the engineering side are basically ready to quit. They're like, Joe, this is just not working out. Like, we haven't got enough contracts. It seems like it's really unlikely it's going to be there. And, I found this in life is oftentimes right before the breakthroughs, you get this like really hard time where people are just like giving up. And I think I convinced a couple of them, let's just push for 6 more months because we have these other things coming. And, and Alex Karp did a really great job of figuring out how to get both the FBI and CIA to move on something, and all of a sudden we had these bigger contracts, and it was good. We were building, but it came really close to dying early on. This stuff takes a long time to build, right? And like I said, you got to be a little bit crazy because you just got to push really hard. You're building a bridge, and you don't know if the island's there or not that you're building it to.